Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live stream here with Kev JB. That's me. Hope everybody is doing well. Give me just one moment as I get myself quickly set up. There we go. All right. So, I apologize for the last live stream that we did with port strikes, economics and destabilization, part one. I did not have my charger. I forgot to bring my charger with me. So I made sure this time to bring it along so that way we can continue the conversation. So the computer won't go out. If you have not already, make sure that you have watched part one because it's going to give some understanding about how things are going to be discussed within this time period. All right. So my battery's a little low, and the charger that I have right now is not going to be helpful. So I'm going to try my best to keep up with the comments. If my phone goes out, it just is what it is. I can't help it, but at least my computer won't go out, so that way I'll be able to talk with you all. We have quite a bit to talk about today. We have to talk about the port strike and how the conclusion has come up. Apparently, they have the ILA, which is the International Longshore. Is it the International Longshore Association has come to conclusion with them their strike, or at least suspended their strike for now, with a 62% increase from the companies that they're working with. So they're able to get them that. They're still in the midst of discussing automation, but it's still in the air about the suspense of the strike until January 2025. And so we're going to get more into that conversation, but we're going to stay on the topic of the economic destabilization because we have to talk about the port strike along with the FEMA situation and the lack of funds that has occurred because of the situation that's at hand. From what we hear is from the migrant situation and how that relates to Hurricane Helene and the whole situation. We're trying to get things into recovery there, right? So first, let's go ahead and get into our introduction, which is talking about the port strikes. And then the next thing we're going to be getting into is the union leader, the ILA leader, Harold Daggett, all right? So let's go into our opening. First of all, before we get into that, if you have not hit the like button, make sure that you do. And then if you are someone who is enjoying the content so far, hit the notification bell and hit the subscribe button so that way you are alerted every time there is a new video, all right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I got my chat GPT set to discuss our introduction and lead it into Mr. Harold Daggett himself. So without further ado, here we go. The port strikes on the U.S. East Coast, which began on October 1st, 2024, were primarily driven by unresolved labor negotiations between International Longshoremen Association and the United States Maritime Alliance. The key issues at the heart of the strike include demands for significant wage increases, concerns of a job increase, job security in the face of automation, and the distribution of container royalties. Negotiations between ILA and USMX broke down after the ILA rejected a proposal for a near 50% wage increase, arguing that it did not sufficiently address job security and automation concerns. The ILA is demanding a $5 per hour wage increase for each year of the new contract and strict protections against the automation of port jobs, which they see as a major threat to workers' livelihoods. This strike is the first of its kind on the East and Gulf Coast in nearly 50 years and has impacted 36 major ports, including those in New York, New Jersey, and Houston. The strike could severely disrupt the U.S. supply chain, particularly affecting goods like electronics, automobiles, and perishable items. Experts estimate that the strike could cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars daily if this continues for a prolonged period of time. Despite calls from business groups for President Biden to intervene by invoking the Taft-Hartley Act to suspend the strike, the White House so far has refrained from taking such action, instead urging both sides to return to negotiations and find a fair solution, which has happened. That is exactly what has occurred. They have managed to find some type of common ground for now. As you all know, since the whole thing with the port strike that happened about a few days ago, the situation has not only put the port members on strike, but this also caused a lot of panic buying, which has been used as a reason to support the idea of needing to have negotiations. And this is what has led to the ILA and the USMX to have a agreement for a 62% wage increase as opposed to the 77% wage increase that they had asked for. So for the time being, things are suspended until January 2025. Now, without further ado, let's go on to this union boss by the name of Harold Daggett. So Harold Daggett, president of the International Longshoremen Association, has been a key figure in the labor movements for decades, leading the ILA since 2011. Born in Greenwich Village and raised in Queens, Daggett's roots in the union run deep. He is a third-generation dock worker, and his son Dennis also holds a senior position in the ILA. So we can see that this is a generation of workers within the family. Daggett's leadership has been marked by his tough, sometimes controversial style. A Vietnam War Navy veteran, he joined the ILA in 1967 and quickly moved through the ranks. His leadership of the union has been defined by strong opposition to automation at U.S. ports, as he sees it as a threat to job security. The recent port strikes in 2024, led by Daggett, are a clear demonstration of his commitment to securing higher wages and protecting jobs from technological changes. He has faced his controversies, including accusations of mafia connections. In 2005, Daggett was acquitted of charges involving organized crime influence over the ILA, despite testimony from a former mob enforcer. Despite these legal challenges, Daggett continues to lead the union leads the union and fight for worker rights, earning a substantial salary for his efforts, which has drawn both support and criticism from within and outside of the union. So we're going to be taking this time to look deeper into this guy, Harold Daggett. And for starters, we're going to be looking at the recent news about his details with having a lot of lavish lifestyles or lavish affairs with his lifestyles due to being in the union in the midst of this port strike. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this, all right? So I'm gonna move myself out the way and take a listen.
President, the guy who called the strike, Harold Daggett leading the strike. Now we're learning more about his lavish lifestyle.
Cheryl Casoni from our sister network Fox Business is here to break it all down. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, good morning to both of you. And he does have a bit of a lavish lifestyle, homes, yachts, a Bentley. Let's get into this. So first, let's talk about his salary. He makes a nice salary. Last year, this president, Harold Daggett, of course, he runs ILA, raked in $900,000, according to union filings from the Department of Labor. For comparison, the average union dock worker makes about $81,000 each year. Now, let's talk about the homes that he owns. He's $1 million home, according to Newsweek, in Highland Beach, Florida. Elon Musk made a really interesting post on X. He said, "Dude has more yachts than me." When a picture of his yacht was posted on social media. He also has, he's had some interesting accusations in his past. The DOJ accused him in 2005 of being part of the Genovese crime family, but that did not go anywhere, those accusations. He was charged with a RICO conspiracy, but he was found not guilty, to be clear. But, this brings into question somebody that is talking about the everyman. He's known for his colorful language, and he's fighting for these longshoremen. At the same time, he's calling the ports and the ocean carriers money crazy. But he lives a nice life, to be clear here. But he's making threats like, and he says this in it.
Okay, so just to pause for a second there. As you can see, this is somebody who is kind of somebody who acts as if they're for the everyday man, but this man clearly lives entirely different lifestyle. $900,000 annually. I doubt anybody who is working on the ports are making that much money, right? So we're going to actually get more into that. And we're also going to be talking about, when it comes to this interview, some key issues that are coming up with his reasoning for why he wants to go in this direction of, the lack of automation and being in control of the job security and things like that. All right. So let's keep moving forward.
Interviews, he'll say people are going to realize how important these jobs are. They can't sell cars. They can't stock the malls. They can't do anything in this country without my blankety blank people. And they're going to realize it. So when you take a really hard stance and a really tough stance against companies and corporations, fair enough. But you should know that, a lot of your property records are out there for public consumption, and reporters are going to find those.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously speaking for the union workers who make, what'd you say, $81,000 a year, but for the boss to be making almost $1 million, have 2 houses, a yacht, and saying we need more money, we're not making enough, there are going to be people who criticize that.
Yeah. Cheryl, there's also
so it has you wondering, when it comes to this union, is this union really for, or this strike, I should say, not the union, but the strike, is this strike truly for the average worker? Or is this something about a power dynamic that has been created from this boss having this lavish lifestyle? It kind of makes you wonder, who is this really for? And why is this somebody who is so adamant against changes with automation? Is there some sister's conspiracy that he may not be aware about, or is there something else that he stands to gain as far as control and power that automation or moving to the technological changes may not be able to offer him, or perhaps the workers in his mind? All right, let's see how this goes.
Way to fight for your people, and I don't think any of us can begrudge him that. But when you say things like his strikers have the power to cripple the economy at a time when our economy is in the shape that it's in with inflation, that's not going to endear you to the American people.
I will tell you one thing. The people of North Carolina need a lot of things right now, like water, the homes destroyed. All of those things are coming in from ships. A lot of the supplies that these people need come in on ships. I just want to make that point. And that was made on Fox Business by Chris Spear from the Trucking Association to me on Monday in an interview that I conducted. He said, look, we've got a natural disaster on our hands, and this is when you need patriotism to show itself.
Great point. Great point there. And bottom line, pays to be a union boss. Cheryl, thank you so much.
I'm thinking of becoming a union boss.
A union of...
I thought you were
We'll
a union boss.
Who will be your workers?
Cheryl knows.
Around every day.
Catch Cheryl on Mornings with Maria. See, I'm advocating for you. I'm quite a boss.
Thank you.
Cassandra, thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilman.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart.
All right, so I was actually going to go right into the interview with Harold Daggett, but I see something here that I think we should be paying attention to. A couple of news reports. So let's go to the New York Post.
Union that has effectively shut down 36 ports along the East Coast and the Gulf Coast. The ports are basically on strike because the workers there are demanding higher wages as well as a ban on automation. And that has drawn more scrutiny to Daggett, who is an outspoken figure. He's given interviews where he's threatened to, quote unquote, cripple the U.S. economy if the union doesn't have their demands met. And the Post obtained exclusive aerial photos taken by a journalist of his very spacious home in New Jersey. The house in Sparta Township measures more than 7,000.
Do you all see this house? Do you all see how big this house is? Look at that. I mean, that thing has like a curve. That's like the curve that you kind of like see in the cul-de-sac, but it's like the house itself is curving. That's a huge house. And he makes almost $1 million annually. Interesting. Let's keep it going.
Square feet. It's got what appears to be an in-ground pool, as well as a very spacious patio, what looks to be a pizza brick oven. There was a Bentley park in front of a 5-car garage. Daggett once tried to put the home on the market. He tried to sell it for as much as $3.1 million, but then the home was taken off the market. The home is quite eye-catching, given that Daggett has cast himself as an advocate for blue-collar workers and spokesperson for the working man. And we know that he has at one time owned a yacht, and he has a salary that is reported to come out to around $900,000. Of course, Daggett has a pretty checkered history. We know that he was acquitted in federal court of having ties to the Genovese crime family. He took the witness stand after federal prosecutors charged him and two others with racketeering. Of course, he was acquitted of those charges, as were other co-defendants. Daggett is 78 years old, and he's easily identifiable. He wears a very large, what looks to be a gold chain around his neck, and he's done interviews in which he's used the F word and used other salty language.
Yeah, so that is kind of like the main thing that stands out about him. Is the fact that he likes wearing those gold chains. In fact, the interview that we're going to be seeing, he's going to be wearing a huge gold chain as well. It's very interesting that you start seeing these expensive pieces of jewelry for the people who are fighting for the average worker, right? What's up, Coruscant? Good seeing you. Like I said, it's been a long time. I'm glad to see you again. All right. So let's go ahead and keep going.
Language to describe his union's fight for what they consider to be their just demands. The port strike is now entering its third day, and economists are warning that a prolonged strike could cause billions of dollars in damage to the economy, as well as shortages in goods such as electronics, medicine, European alcohol and beer, as well as auto parts. So we will see how this plays out. Hopefully, the strike ends sooner rather than later.
Now, obviously, this was done before the strike ended, but still, it's very interesting to see how somebody who has this love for the average worker and things like that was actually willing to cripple the economy just to meet demands for job security and for the automations to not be there or to have severe restrictions. Renaissance woman, hey, good seeing you. All right. So we're going to move on to our next one right here, which is the bigger issue from port strike.
Storage with us right now. I was thinking of you. I'm sure there are a lot of toys on those ships and everywhere else, and I know a lot of big retailers, had gotten their hands on them ahead of this to prepare. What are we looking at now, you think?
Well, honestly, I believe most of the Christmas goods are already in port, already in stock, in the warehouses and ready to go. This wasn't so much a matter of what was going to happen for Christmas. It was more what was going to happen, to the economy as a whole. Products like perishable goods, that's not really Christmas goods, bananas, right, something like that, automobiles. So I think it wasn't too bad as long as it was quick. From the numbers that you just heard, you get some idea what would have happened though, and that could have been a much bigger issue.
One thing, Daryl, again, the numbers aren't final or completely crunched here, but it looks like a 62% pay hike over 6 years works out to about an annual pay boost of 10% a year, well over the inflation for the time being. I always find in a lot of these deals that other unions and other workers in general say, what you did for them, do for me. What do you think happens?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that this is somewhat inflationary. It's obviously not as bad as it could have been. And keep in mind, this is a relatively small number of people, right, who control an awful lot. And that also means giving a big raise doesn't necessarily in and of itself mean that it's going to be that inflationary. If it has an effect on other jobs, other trades, then of course you can see that. But that's why it's so hard to tamp out inflation. Once it starts, once people feel that pressure, and I'm sure these workers felt that pressure, then inflation keeps growing and growing and growing. It takes a long time in order to catch up. But the bigger issue, I think, overall, is that our supply chain seems to be becoming less and less reliable. And it's not just the strikes. You have things like war. So what the Houthis are doing, for example, in the Red Sea. You saw what happened during the pandemic. That caused additional problem. People are worried about tariffs, and what effect that could have on trade. So, and weather. So, we built this whole economy based upon just in time for everything. So the idea was that no inventories anywhere, just move fast for efficiency. But now we see if one thing goes wrong, it can have massive effects. So I think what we're going to see
That is actually very true. This whole thing that has been happening for the past few years to now include this strike shows how very fragile the U.S. supply chain has been all this time. And like you said, everything has always been from the standpoint of doing things like right in the moment. But one thing happens and you start really seeing how things just begin to unravel. All right. So that's something to really take time to keep in mind. Let's keep going. By the way, are you guys able to hear everything very well? I know I have some issues with trying to keep up with the CPU and stuff. I may have to delete some things, but let me know if you're able to hear things okay. So that way I can do my best to assist, but there's just certain things I got to work with. All right. So let's keep things going.
Is retailers, manufacturers, others building up more buffer inventory, which isn't the most efficient thing in the world, but at least provides more safety in times like these. The other things we're going to see is more nearshoring, more things produced in the U.S., but particularly in Mexico and Latin America, because then you don't have to worry about any of this.
Yeah, you can hedge your bets. Gerald, great seeing you. Have a good weekend, my friend. Gerald Sorge on all of that. Investors.
All right, so now that we've done that, we can make our way to the actual interview, because one of the things you heard from the news reporters is that he's kept saying, no, we'll cripple this economy. I will cripple you. Stuff like that. That sounds like a major threat. Lawana, hey there. Hey there. Good evening to you too. I hope everything's going fine. So one of the things you heard that was mentioned often from the reporters was Harold Daggett saying that he would cripple you. He would, which is basically making making a threat, really, not only to just the company, but this also hurts the economy. This hurts consumers as well. And we know that it hurts because of the panic buying that occurred with the decision to strike. And so we're going to look more into this particular interview where he says that. We're actually going to go through the whole 17 minutes, so you may want to take some popcorn and listen to everything. All right, here we go.
The industry changed in those years. You came on before containerization, and you were a young guy and in the family of this industry. How if you could do a 50,000-foot view of how you've seen it change, what is it to you?
I can tell you it changed a lot. I can tell you back in the 60s, the first company that started containerization was Sealand. Two truck drivers, Malcolm McLean, Cecil Yeagers, got together and said, we're taking cargo up and down the East Coast. Why don't we get a ship, put the cargo on a ship, and go up and down the East Coast? They weren't even thinking about over Europe, none of that. They wanted to try to catch a trucking company to put it on a ship and bring it up here, put it on a ship and bring it down there. So they went and got an old tanker ship, and they got engineers, and they sponsored the money, and they got people to chip in, and they came up and they built a crane on the ship, and they got a container, and they put the cargo in. And maybe the first ship came up with 50 boxes, not even 50, 20 boxes. It worked. They came in to the port, the crane on the ship unloaded them, and they loaded them on, and they went down. Well, it caught on. And from there, everywhere you go in the world, you'll see those cranes. They look like monsters. No matter where you go, what port, overseas, Europe, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, anywhere, Spain, those cranes are there. It all started with Sealand.
So here you can see that he has given a detailed history about how everything got started with putting the containers into the sea, the containerization of goods. So he's kind of given a breakdown of what he has seen from 1967 and how it has made an impact to today. All right. Going forward, move myself out the way.
The company before Sealand is called Pan Atlantic, but Sealand bought that, and then they became Sealand. Okay, I show up 1967. I explained to you before, the maintenance local was down. We built it all up. You heard me. Where the changes started, we always went for a 3-year contract. When my father, when I was a young kid, we went on strike for 25 cents. 25 cents. We went on strike in 1977 for 3 months for 80 cents. Fast forward, back then the companies were lucky they made millions of dollars, 10 million, 5 million. Today, they make billions and billions of dollars. They make, MSC is the richest shipping company in the world, made 3 times the money than Amazon. A lot of money, right? Billions. Well, one of the companies, and I won't mention his name, he took himself a Christmas bonus, $4 billion. He took it out for him and his family, $4 billion. A French company, I won't mention their name, they gave all their employees 50 months salary as a Christmas gift. Now, look at that money. They have so much money, they don't even know what to do with it. They know.
So you guys here, just kind of like from everything that he is sharing, everything kind of goes back to the money, right? That comes back again and again and again and again. He is very focused on the money, though for the work, whether it's for the workers or primarily from the standpoint of the companies amassing billions and billions of dollars, and then being able to at least share that with other employers in different parts of the world. But then when it comes to here, here in the U.S., they're not seeing that amount of money showing up. So there's going to be something that you're hearing a lot, probably more throughout this interview. You're going to be hearing that.
They're building up terminals. They want to go automation. They want more money now. Get rid of these men. We don't need them no more. It's a big change going on. I've been fighting automation for years. They destroyed LA. They put a fully automated terminal out there at Merce Line. 800 longshoremen lost their jobs. If it was up to them, they would like to see everybody lose their jobs. Let me tell you, it's not just in the longshore. They got ships in Europe that they're building. They got one now, runs on a battery, container ship. No crew. Somebody in an office building runs it. Goes out, goes in. They don't want anybody. They don't want to pay anybody. It's not only this union, it's in every union in every aspect. If they keep putting machinery to take our jobs, who's going to pay the income tax? Machines are not. Who's going to pay for the military, the roads? Everything runs by taxes. Take Easy Pass.
So here he's focusing on, basically he's competing with automation. So the reason why they're so opposed to automation is because it is playing a role in them having the money that they need to secure themselves, secure the longshoremen, but also other unions as well. So he's saying that he's not just thinking about the longshoremen, he's thinking about other unions as well and how they have to work to put a opposition or severe restrictions onto automation, so that way that they are able to have the money that they need to have a sustainable career doing the work, especially since the taxes are going towards the work that's being involved. They want to have that money coming in for themselves as workers. All right, don't want that going away for the sake of automation. Here.
The first time they come out with Easy Pass, one lane, and cars were going through and everybody's sitting in their car and go, what's that all about? I'm going to get one of them. Today, all those union jobs are gone and it's all Easy Pass. People don't realize it. Everybody's got 3 cars. Everybody got an Easy Pass on the window. And they go through like it's nothing. And they get billed in the mail. They didn't care about that union worker working in the booth. You go in a store today, it's self-checking. They don't need anybody to check out no more. Someone has to get into Congress and say, whoa, time out. This world is going too fast for us. Machines got to stop. Yes, we're getting smart kids out of MIT and all these places. Yeah, they're all brilliant. But what good is it if you're going to put people out of work?
And so that's the main issue at hand. It's essentially they don't want to go out of work. That's what the strike has been all about. They don't want to go out of work. They don't want to be replaced by machinery. They want to have something that they want to have security that if we could keep doing the work, if we could keep doing the things that we're supposed to do, we are able to provide and make sure that we have a sustainable career, not only for ourselves, but for the future of the industry. His focus, as far as the union is concerned, is making sure that humans are the ones that are working the jobs. But they are fighting against automation because automation is the very thing that's taking the job. Almost kind of like similar to how they say the migrants are taking the jobs away. Now they're saying that it's the automation that is doing that. So that's the very thing that led to the strike.
Who's going to support their families? Machines? Machines don't have families. You got to draw the line. These companies that work in the maritime business come from overseas. Not one of them belongs to America. They want to come into America and build fully automated terminals and get rid of American jobs. Good paying jobs that support families with medical, pensions, annuities, and pay taxes. They want to get rid of them. Where's the president of the United States? He's not fighting for us. He told in LA, he told the union, hurry up and get a contract. That's the mentality they have. They don't even know what the hell they're doing today. Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to save everybody's job when it comes to the ILA and to all the unions around the world, because we're going to fight with that alliance. I'll shut them down throughout the world to prove that we can beat them.
So here we start seeing the first of the threats that we hear about shutting them down, which is the very thing again that led to the strike in the first place. All because of again not having not wanting to have automation there, and as they're taking their time to focus more and more on it, they are, especially him as somebody who has not only built his career but built his lifestyle with the with the work that has been done up until this point. This is the very thing that he's trying to fight against. Now, again, didn't want to say much of anything, but y'all see this gold chain, right? Hold on, let me move myself out of the way so you can see it. Hold on, so you see the gold chain right here, right? Yeah. So this man lives very lavishly. He lives very lavishly through the work that he has done throughout the decades. So it's almost kind of like you're seeing someone who doesn't want the work to change, because if the work changes, he won't be able to benefit. And the workers who have been able to depend on the job so much for everything that they have been, able to work through for the past few decades, they won't be able to really get anything financially from it. And the automation is the one that's going to be replacing them, and they won't have to really pay automation. All that money will just go more towards them, and probably reinvesting back, more than likely reinvesting back into the ports, so that way that they have the more automation to fuel the work that they're replacing humans to do. So here we go. Let's continue forward.
So yes, your answer is we came a long way. We came along so advanced that technology is mind-boggling. We never had cameras on the piers. They got a camera in every pole. They got cameras they want to put in the trucks to watch the driver driving. What is this, Big Brother? I'm against all that. I'm against that. A man can't even breathe without a camera looking at him. That's not right.
What about, there certainly must be, since 1967, elements of technology that have been good for the industry.
Technology that's been good for the industry. That's a tough one, because I got to be careful, because I'm against automation. Right. Semi-automation is automation. It's just the back avenue had to come in and give you automation without you knowing it. But certain technology, yes, is good, because computers, we get more work done with computers. We have doubled the cargo. We have, if you look now, we have ships that are being built by these companies. Check this out. That hold 22,000 containers. It's a floating city. They had to take the Bayonne Bridge and raise it way up here so the ships could go under it to get in here to unload them. 22,000 containers. It's amazing how we came from the first ship with just a small amount of containers, 25, 50 boxes on them. So look at the future now. Look at the future in money. They went from millions of dollars to billions and billions of dollars. So the world is going by real quick.
Is it safe to
So
say?
you hear the focal point being about the money, right? Being able, because the moment he starts talking about, the progress that has been made, and him wanting some technology, but not automation and semi-automation, it goes eventually right back into the money, right? So you can clearly see that this is somebody who keeps his eyes on the money, keeps his eyes on the dollars and what that comes in for the workers and probably even himself. Again, this is somebody who makes 900K annually. So this really seemed like somebody who sounds like someone who has been used to the things being the way that they were. And now that things are changing, they're now being considered a relic. So he's been fighting against that. That's what it sounds like. And that's been his bread all this time. Now that that's starting to change, that's what he's been fighting against as part of the union.
Say that you're not against technology for efficiencies, but you're person first, people first, like protecting jobs and families while embracing technology to keep the workflow efficient.
Let me explain a little bit about this. The first cranes that went up with diesel engines up there. As time went on, they got rid of diesel. Today, it's electric. The jobs on the waterfront are very dangerous. Just 2 years ago, one of my mechanics fell into the electric and he was fried to death. Wife, 4 kids. Happens all the time.
Before he continues, if you listen more into this interview, he's going to talk more about the dangers and the risks that the workers face. Now, from what I have heard, one of the things that the companies have been trying to do is reduce the liabilities and the dangers, potential dangers, because it costs so much money once that thing is done. Whether somebody dies or there's an injury, somebody gets maimed, or whatever the case may be. So this is here that I start seeing how he is making a weak defense for why he is wanting to be on strike in regards to this. It seems to me like he is more focused on trying to defend why the workers should have more because of the dangers, when in reality, if somebody was looking at this from a different perspective, they would see that this is the very thing that costs money in the first place, and why they want to move into simply having more automation, so that way more lives aren't disrupted or taken from these things that occur on the job. All right, so he's going to talk more about this. Let's keep going.
On the piers, people getting killed. There was a woman checker. She was checking the boxes when a guy had a high-low with 2 stacks of steel. He should have been riding in reverse. He was looking through the bundles, knocked her down. He didn't even see her, dragged her under the high-low in front of her son, ripped her apart and killed her. It happens. It happens down here all the time. I had 2 guys killed right in front of me. It happens. We have a group in our local 1804 Dead called the Lashes. The most dangerous job on the waterfront. When they put the containers on top of the hatch covers, all the way up high, you see them in the container ship, they got to be all lashed down in case the storm and the seas are real rough. The ship is doing this and this. If they're not lashed down right, those containers are going to go over into the ocean and sink. Millions of dollars of cargo sunk. So what? My men got to go out there. It's 0 degrees. There's ice on top of the container. It's freezing with metal bars and hooks, safety lines on them, way up high, and they got to put them down tight, get up on the box, slide on the ice up on top. Completely dangerous. That's in the north. In the south, it could be 95, 105 degrees. Soaking wet down there. They got a guy that goes around, they call him the water boy, giving water to the men so they don't dehydrate. Or the ones that work in the hull of the ship, they get water. It's different elements. You have us here in the north, Canada. You have from Virginia down all the way to Houston. Hot. Florida, everything's hot. Different elements. Dangerous job. We've had 17 people killed in the last 3 years. That's 17 people that didn't come home. We just had a kid killed in Houston. Young kid, a big roll of paper, weighed a ton, rolled off on top of him, killed him.
So then the argument could easily turn into, why then would we want to keep things the same if it's going to lead people to die, or to be unalive, I should say? Why would we want to continue this trajectory that we've been having with the workers being hurt, or something happening worse than being hurt onto them, when we could just simply go into automation and we could preserve lives while building more efficiency with the job? Again, not a very wise decision to go into this direction. That actually hurts his stance more than just simply the threat that he was making about stopping and crippling things with the companies, with the strikes.
That's why I fight. I fight for jurisdiction. I fight for safety. I fight for these to be compensated with good salaries. These companies are making billions of dollars. They should take us along. We brought them to where they are. Now they want to get rid of us? That's not fair. Not fair at all. And this union's been around close to 200 years. So you can see why I'm always fighting.
Why do you think you haven't had to strike since then?
Because you had leaders like me, and the companies got smart and said, we don't want to go through another 3 months strike. Let's negotiate in good faith. Back then, the companies didn't make the money that we make today. So we negotiated in good faith. We went with 6-year contracts. And we got $1 raise, $1.50 raise for 6 years. It was great. It was a lot of money compared to 80 cents for 3 months. But today's world, it's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions. And they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they fast as they make it, I want a piece of that for my men. Because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day. When everybody.
So I need to interrupt here. Again, this actually, when the strikes happen, you saw everybody panic right away. And we're starting to see more and more of this guy's reasons for why he is wanting to have the strike. He is very focused on the money. That's the main thing that you hear throughout this particular interview. It's actually that, along with the threats of crippling things for the company, and mentioning the injuries or the negatives of working that job. It's actually showing how much of a liability that he is. And so it makes people wonder, is this something that they want to keep going with for a long time? It just makes you wonder, is this something that is really viable for a long time, when you have somebody who is trying to stop the progress because he or even other workers have something to gain from the standpoint of they just want to have a piece of the action, they want to have a piece of the money. It's just something that just seems like it keeps happening. So I'm going to try not to move too much, get too amped up. But it's something that's like you have to really pay attention, because it's like, what is your motive? What is your true motive for actually doing this thing? What is your true motive for the actual strikes that has affected people to the point where they've had panic buying? Yeah, you may have tried to cripple the companies, but from what it seems like from the news interviews that we did the last time, the companies were prepared. The consumers weren't. So you actually caused a whole lot of panic for the consumers than you did for the companies. What was the point? What was it that you were trying to gain? That's the thing that keeps coming up, is the money. Let him keep talking long enough. You know the saying, let people talk long enough, they will show you their true selves over time. His focus is trying to, for me, from what I see, is that he wants to make sure that not only are these workers getting the money that they're paying for, having an increase, but for him, I believe it's going to be more from the standpoint of maintaining the lavish lifestyle, because this company or this field is gaining more and more money that they are not seeing, and he wants to have a piece of the action. He wants a piece of the action for his men. All right, let's keep going.
Stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve.
Do you think, this is my last question, do you think the threat of the strike is they can understand the significance of that based on the recent things that have happened, like our Key Bridge, we're from Maryland, our Key Bridge collapsing and it just stopping all the ships from being able to deliver?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I would like to tell you something.
Okay.
When that bridge fell, my longshoremen are on this side of the bridge, no work, no salaries. Biden called me up on the phone, President Biden. Harold, I got the money to build a new bridge. I go, oh. What about my longshoremen? They're out of work now. They didn't cause no problem. Well, he goes, I got the money for building a new bridge and getting the bridge that's in the water out of there. I ask you one more time, President, what about the men whose families now have no money coming in? Well, you know, if there was an explosion on a ship, maybe I can get the money. Listen, you're supposed to be a friend of the ILA. You came to me when you wanted the AFL-CIO back in. I got it for you. You called me in the kitchen. You thanked me 1,000,000 times. I'm telling you, my members need help. Well, let me see what I can do. In politics, that means you're not getting it, okay?
That's what that sounds like to me, unfortunately. So, again, this is somebody who is, again, trying to use their power to try to get in touch with the president. But it makes me wonder if he's even really seeing the use of the workers a bit, just based on how he is acting. Now, I'm not saying that from the standpoint of laughing or making light of it. I think it's terrible that people are out of a job. But it just kind of has you wondering, do they really see the longshoremen as something that is a huge asset, especially if they want to try to, progress more with automation? Now, you guys know that when we're talking about automation, this is the whole thing, and the whole clean energy thing. This plays a role of the things that they're trying to get prepared for 2030, right? I don't want to get too involved in that right now. I want to make sure I want to stay focused on this particular topic, but it's just something to keep in mind, all right? Keep in mind.
I opened up a fund with management after the first pandemic. Let me see how much money's in that fund. I called them up. They called me back. $300 million. Wow, are you kidding me? We put $300 million in there? Yeah. Well, I'd like to take some money out of there and pay for those families in Baltimore. Well, Harold, it's only for pandemic. Well, what about we get your lawyers and my lawyers, and any disaster, nature disaster, whatever, we can draw from it. I have no problem as long as the lawyers work it out. They worked it out in one day. It cost me $1.2 million every week to pay for their families. Plus, they were allowed to go to unemployment. And it's over now. They're back working. The ships are going in and out. I never got no help from the government. We did it on our own, management and union. That's what we're supposed to be doing, working together. And I hope we get back into that right realm.
Do you think
that was in Baltimore?
Right.
What was the question again?
Well, it was just about, like, I remember like how significantly it impacted our businesses, like the supply chain, because I
glad you brought
live
that
on
up.
the Chesapeake
Let me
Bay,
explain
and all
something.
the ships were just waiting on the other
Liz,
side.
let me explain something to you. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are.
I know that his efforts is trying to make it seem as if this is what makes the longshoreman valuable. But really, if anything, from my point of view and from anybody else's, that can make the longshoreman look like a liability because you're actually wanting to weaponize the demands you're having through the strike so that way that you are heard. Nothing, and no, from that standpoint, from his standpoint, I can understand that. I do. But for the well-being of the economy, to have that type of to say that out loud in that manner, it makes it look bad. It actually does not help you in trying to secure why you need to be someone that is of a useful need for the future of the industry. It's a bad look, especially now since there's options now with automation. Doesn't look good. My personal opinion. You're free to give your thoughts down in the comments, but from my point of view, it doesn't look very good.
Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. In today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
So there's that interview. So thank you all for sticking with me throughout all of that time. So do you think that put him in a good light? For me personally, I do not think so. I think it's going to actually help with bringing more automation in over time because now you have somebody who can use their strike as a tool. Now for him, he feels as if that is no other choice but to sign an agreement and bring it along. And that may be all right for the moment because they already have a 62 wage increase as they have negotiated. Now, the strike is still suspended up to January 2025. In the long run, I do not think that was a good move to make. And it'll be interesting to see how things will evolve over time, where more automation is going to be put in so that way that the supply chain still keeps going. Because as I mentioned now, the supply chain is very, very fragile. I mentioned that in the earlier news. The supply chain is very fragile because there's so many things that can go wrong. And having automation could be one of those things that makes it stronger and more efficient. Did he help himself with that? I don't think so. But now this actually gets more into what I want to discuss further, which is talking about economic destabilization. Now, again, going back to what I said before, the person who was looking at the ports, he was saying in that particular news article that supply chain is very weak, and this actually shows the strain that has been put into our economics overall through our goods, right? So now we have another strain that has been put into our hands, which is Hurricane Helene, and I'm going to be talking a little more about that today, as well as how does that aid with economic instability and economic destabilization overall. Can it lead to a collapse? Wouldn't go that far, but we can say that at this moment now, our economy is very weak. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and read through my chat GPT. I'm going to stop sharing in this moment. I'm going to read my chat GPT so that way we can start getting more into this whole thing with FEMA. So as you all may have heard about the issue with FEMA, let me see. So here we go. FEMA is currently facing a significant funding shortfall that may jeopardize its ability to respond in future disasters for the remainder of the 2024 hurricane season. The issue has arisen amid the ongoing recovery efforts of Hurricane Helene, which caused widespread devastation across several southeastern states, with recovery costs estimated to reach up to $34 billion. So I have someone who actually lives in one of the southeastern states. So, and I can tell you that even though I wasn't the one that was significantly damaged by it, there has been a lot of impact that has been caused through Hurricane Helene that we're still, by and large, recovering from. It wasn't too bad, but it was bad enough. We had power outages that last for almost a week. Okay. Continuing on, despite the recent infusion of $16 billion from a stopgap funding measure passed by Congress, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas warned that FEMA lacks sufficient funds to manage additional hurricanes, particularly with more storms potentially forming before the season ends in November. The agency is able to meet immediate needs, but will likely run out of resources if further disasters occur. This funding shortfall has sparked debate, with some conservative lawmakers arguing that FEMA's resources have been strained by spending on other issues such as migrant services. FEMA has spent $640 million in fiscal year 2024 on services related to migrant arrivals. This has led to calls for more targeted spending and greater congressional oversight before additional funding is allocated. President Biden may request an emergency supplemental spending package to cover the shortfall, but this will require Congress to reconvene before its scheduled return after November elections, a prospect that has met resistance from some lawmakers. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead on to the whole issue with FEMA and Mayorkas. So let's see. Give me a moment. By the way, as we're taking the time to listen to this, or as I prepare this, make sure that you hit the like button if you're liking the content so far, and make sure that if you're new here, hit the subscribe button, and click on the notification bell so that way you are alerted every time there is a new video. All right, so let's look at this one right here from News 3 Las Vegas. All right, so I'm going to present here. Eagle Eye Prepping. Hey, give me just a moment. Let me get myself together for setting up for this stuff here. All right. Eagle Eye Prepping, what's good? It's good seeing you. I hope that you're doing well. Happy Friday. All right, so we're going to get into this topic of Mayorkas and FEMA and the short fund.
Television, but we have pictures right now of, can't time this with live television, but we have pictures right now of President Biden at Joint Base Andrews getting ready to board Air Force One, go down to Florida. And here you can see the live pictures on your screen. It's the magic of television. Try getting that on your phone. And he's going to Florida to survey all of the damage from Helene. And get this, there is a warning this morning from federal officials that our nation's emergency fund is running low on cash, and we have hurricane season all the way through next month. As the president walks up the steps to Air Force One, let's check in live with our national correspondent, Matt Galka. Matt, the timing perfect there as far as what we're talking about right now. But this is troubling as an American. Here I am in Las Vegas, not in harm's way from a hurricane, but at the same time, how can it be running low on cash?
Yeah, it's certainly not the news here, especially if you're living in the Southeast right now in one of those hard-hit states. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA, this is the good news. They say they have enough money in the short term, but not enough for the rest of hurricane season. That's the message from Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas this week. FEMA is still tallying up the total damage from Helene as they're delivering food, water, and other supplies to those hardest hit states in the Southeast. Now, more than 150,000 households have already applied for disaster relief, but that's likely on the low end. That number probably going to go up soon. FEMA has around $20 billion to work with for the remainder of the year, and Congress gave the agency the flexibility to spend it more quickly when they passed the short-term funding bill that lasts through December. They did that last week before leaving Washington. House Speaker Mike Johnson, he'll also be visiting some of the impacted areas today in Florida, and President Biden, as you mentioned, he'll be in Florida and Georgia surveying that damage as well. And both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, they also made some visits earlier this week. Hurricane season runs through November 30th, and we see a lot of these storms in the September and October months. At this point, if they're running out of money, there just has to be the hope that the U.S. does not get hit by another catastrophic storm.
I'm in a gambling town, and I just don't like those odds. You're just the messenger, though, Matt. Thank you for sharing. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that one. We'll see how that turns out. So let's move on to this one right here.
And then there's this aspect of Mayorkas is warning that FEMA does not have enough funding to make it through the rest of the hurricane season. But the department has hundreds of millions of dollars designated to support illegal migrants. Chad Pergram is live on Capitol Hill with this. Chad?
John, good afternoon. Here's the conundrum. Republicans point to a man-made disaster like the border crisis having enough money, but the response to a natural disaster like Helene running low on cash. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says FEMA is fine for now.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
Congress infused FEMA with $20 billion for immediate disaster aid in last week's spending bill, but Helene will drain FEMA's reserves because it was so catastrophic. The hurricane season runs through the end of next month. Congress approved $640 million to help communities deal with an influx of illegal immigration. But money for the border and natural disasters come from different accounts.
We're so quick to forget things like the incidents in Maui or hurricanes here in Florida, or even the recent hurricane with Hurricane Helene that's impacted North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia so much. But we'll focus and prioritize illegal criminal migrants as well as for borders 9,000 miles away.
Some lawmakers want Congress to give communities wrestling with the migrant crisis $3 billion next year. House Speaker Mike Johnson is mindful of more disaster funding this fall.
Congress will have to address it. I mean, this is an appropriate role for the federal government. But to your point, Steve, we have to prioritize federal spending. We have a $35 trillion federal debt. You got to take care of national defense. You have to handle federal emergencies.
Now, expect Congress to reload FEMA with money, then provide additional funds to help with Helene. That's on top of money Congress likely spends on wildfires in Hawaii, Hurricane Beryl in Texas, and a typhoon on Guam. John?
I'll tell you, they can't get relief to the folks fast enough. Chad Pergram for us. Chad, thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I mean, Earhart.
Here's the next one right here.
Southwest states are devastated by Hurricane Helene. They will need billions of dollars in disaster aid to just get back on their feet. Earlier this week, President Joe Biden said he was considering calling Congress back to pass disaster relief funding. Joining us now to discuss all this, and of course, FEMA, is the Deputy Director, is Rachel Bryan, the Deputy Public Policy Editor for OpenTheBooks.com. Hi, Rachel.
Good morning.
Good morning. What is going on with FEMA and money? I mean, some of this is a little bit alarming. The fact that FEMA could be running out of money, may not have enough money to cover hurricane relief for the rest of the season. And then, of course, the fiscal problems even before Helene. Is FEMA underwater at this point?
Right. Yes. Yes. So the most recent report from the Office of the Inspector General found that FEMA's disaster fund had a $6 billion deficit at the end of July. And so Mayorkas said either yesterday or today, FEMA doesn't have enough money to get through the hurricane season. President Biden has requested more funds in the past. Last October, he asked for about $24 billion, $9 billion of it for FEMA. Congress was busy giving aid to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and other places. They did not pass that funding for FEMA. And so part of this is FEMA's fault. They have this pot of funds of unliquidated obligations that it's referred to. It's to help victims of storms from before 2012. And it's just sitting there. It's not being used. It's money that has been promised, but it's unclear whether it will ever go to help American families. And meanwhile, that money is not right now allowed to be allowed to use to help victims of Helene or any other hurricane. So it's sort of stuck in purgatory, and FEMA's got to figure out how to get that money out.
So why is it stuck? Why is it just sitting there? Is this some sort of a legal requirement? Is it mandated by Congress? I mean, why can't that money move?
So the money is not supposed to be sitting that long, and not without a good reason. FEMA is not following their own procedures properly. They're required to use grants by a certain deadline. If that deadline is extended, then FEMA officials have to give a written detailed justification. But they've been holding on to these funds. They've been extending deadlines, sometimes without explanation. So for example, FEMA set aside billions to help the Northeast recover from Hurricane Sandy in 2012. That money was supposed to be used by 2016. FEMA, for some reason, extended that into 2026, 10 years later. As of last year, $5 billion of that was still sitting there, still unused. They're not making it available for new victims. They're not releasing those funds. The Inspector General, Homeland Security, has said that FEMA has been extending these awards subjectively. And they said, as a result, there's a risk for fraud, waste, and abuse the longer the program remains open. So FEMA needs to get its act together and get this money out of there, especially as we see Helene and Mayorkas just said, we're running out of money for this hurricane season.
And that's the thing. I mean, you see the images on our newscast of so many people, communities devastated. And in some cases, as you're mentioning, the money is there. So what can Congress do? What can lawmakers do? What can the president do? Can they put pressure? I mean, it's all a part of the federal government. So what needs to happen in order to get that money out of there?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, on top of those unspent funds, FEMA had a field day paying for COVID expenses. They improperly budgeted their COVID expenses during the pandemic. They spent way over than what they budgeted. That's also part of the problem, why they're in such a deep hole. Biden has said he may call Congress back in. They're in a recess right now. It's election season. So members of Congress are back in their districts. They're campaigning. And so hopefully the pressure will mount on Biden to bring Congress back and get this money passed. That's what they need. Congress would have to come back. They did pass a sort of stopgap funding measure to give $20 billion to FEMA before they left. That's not enough. $6 billion of that alone was going to address other pent-up demands from previous, floods in Vermont, the wildfires in Hawaii. So not all of that can go to hurricanes. And then FEMA also in August, they put on hold sort of longer term projects, rebuilding projects to focus on immediate needs funding, life-saving, life-sustaining activities, day one, day two of hurricane relief. And so you have all these other problems of people, their homes are destroyed. They're sitting there waiting for FEMA money to kick in and be able to get that funds to them. And so FEMA paused 650 projects that it said were not essential for life-saving services. And that's happened many times since 2021. So Congress needs to get in and get that money. Biden needs to push them back into DC, take them out of their districts so that they can get that money. And there also needs to be better practices. This can't happen again. FEMA cannot be holding on to money for floods or hurricanes that happened in 2012 with no plans of dispersing that money.
Well, we're all watching to see what's going to happen here. Thanks a lot, Rachel, openthebooks.com. Rachel Bryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Angela.
So stuff like this has you wondering, because how are they able to get this money, right? They get that money through our tax dollars. So what we're seeing is a mismanagement of funds, a mismanagement of how things are supposed to be held, so that way, in case there are emergencies, We're not supposed to run out of money like this. Stuff like this, it kind of makes you wonder who is helping with the budgeting of this particular these particular administration or within the organizations, particularly like FEMA. So Eagle Eye Preface says, I did some research on this earlier. Looks like a gross misuse of funds by the DHS and negligence from FEMA. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is exactly what's going on. You mean to tell me of all the money that you would have gained from the American people, you can't even muster enough money, enough billions of dollars to fund something for the sake of these victims? Everything else between the migrants and what's going on with the wars can be funded, but when it comes to the issues that are going on that affects here in U.S. soil, there's nothing there. And so what do you think is going to happen when it comes to taxes? Is this part of the reason why they want the tax cuts to be removed, especially when Kamala gets into office? Is this part of the reason why they want the tax cuts to go away from Donald Trump? It's stuff like this that makes you wonder. So they're going to need more money because how they've been handling money with what it is that they've already been doing hasn't been managed well. That's what we're going to see happening. I guarantee you all, this is the thing that they're not telling you. It's going to be a thing that they're not going to tell you, but we can see through the cracks right now. We're going to start seeing an increase of taxes of our tax dollars, and they're going to mismanage more of it, more than likely, because they don't keep a good record of what it is that they do. All right. Now, let's go through one more video. And I'm just going to take myself out of here before I move on further. Let's do this.
They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants.
Well, 10 TV political reporter Doug Petcash looked into this for us tonight. And the question being, is FEMA running out of disaster relief funding because it's being spent on undocumented migrants? Doug, what's the answer?
Well, the answer is no, Angela. The administration did not divert money from FEMA's disaster relief fund, but there is a separate fund administered by FEMA that does give hundreds of millions of dollars to help undocumented migrants. The White House pushed back on Trump's claims in a statement saying this is false. The disaster relief fund is specifically appropriated by Congress to prepare for, respond to, recover from, and mitigate impacts of natural disasters. It is completely separate from other grant programs administered by FEMA for DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, that is. And on its website, FEMA said basically the same thing, that no money is being diverted from disaster response needs. That being said, FEMA does administer the separate Shelter and Services Program in partnership with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. That program provides financial support to non-federal entities to help non-citizen migrants. Its budget this year, $640 million. And just last month, 10 TV reported the city of Columbus received a $6.6 million grant through the program to provide shelter for immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. City officials say the grant will build upon partnerships and expand the capacity to provide shelter and material assistance for migrants and displaced residents. The city will get the money over 3 years. Now, Springfield, the Ohio city at the center of false claims about immigrants amplified by Trump, did not receive any grant funding through the Shelter and Services Program. In the studio, Doug Petcash, 10 TV News.
So then where is the money? If it's not going towards the illegal migrants that are here, where is the money going? Where are they being allocated? Because they can't just the money can't just be disappearing in thin air. Where has the money gone? You mean to tell me that you have all these things that are being managed well with FEMA, and yet somehow when it comes to having money secured for relief from storms and natural disasters, there's nothing there? Nothing? Okay. So without further ado, I'm gonna take myself, I'm gonna take this down, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And I'm gonna get into the next part of this, which is about Vice President Kamala Harris and how active she has been in securing the situation with FEMA's lack of funds and finding solutions to the problem. ChatGPT says, Vice President Kamala Harris has been actively involved with the federal response to the hurricane-related crises, including the including the funding challenges faced by FEMA during the ongoing 2024 hurricane season. She has worked closely with Biden and FEMA officials to ensure that immediate disaster response efforts continue despite financial shortfalls FEMA is experiencing. Harris has engaged with state and local leaders in affected areas, including governors from North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, to assess the damage and facilitate federal assistance. Her involvement has included in-brief briefings at FEMA headquarters and direct communication with local officials to address unmet needs, particularly in isolated and hard-hit communities. Additionally, Harris has supported the administration's push for more robust federal coordination. For example, FEMA had deployed resources such as satellite communications and search and rescue teams, and it continues to coordinate with other federal officials, other federal agencies to address infrastructure issues like power restoration and debris removal in devastated areas. While the funding issue remains unresolved, Harris and the Biden administration are exploring emergency supplemental funding measures to address FEMA's potential budget exhaustion. The administration remains in close contact with Congress to expedite relief efforts and ensure ongoing disaster responses, even as more hurricanes are anticipated during the remaining months of the season. All right. So from what I have heard her say, but the administration is preparing to give $750 towards the families that have been affected by Hurricane Helene. I'm going to take my time and let's see, $750. That's something that has been going around on YouTube lately. All right, so let's see here. Let's do CBS News here. And we're going to go back to projecting our screen.
To say. Devastating in terms of the loss of life that this community has experienced, the loss of normalcy, and the loss of critical resources. And so I'm here today to thank all of those who are working to get folks the support and the relief that they so desperately need and so rightly deserve. And that includes the fact that still in this community, up to 60% of the residents here do not have power. Many have been without running water for at least a couple of days now. Many have water, but no hot water. I was just talking with one of the members of the community and her daughter who lost her husband. And there is real pain and trauma that has resulted because of this this hurricane and what has happened in terms of.
So I wanted to just pause really quickly. So how you hear Kamala respond is usually how she responds when it comes to like her interviews and stuff. She has this way of just kind of like running over and just tripping over her words. And like, this is somebody who was trying to be the president of the United States. Just like no energy, no sense of kind of like urgency of what it is to do. It's just kind of like she's just kind of regurgitating the situation that's at hand as if we don't already know that people are without water and people without power and there's a lot of destruction everywhere. Let me get off of that. Let's keep going.
The aftermath of it. I do want to acknowledge and thank the first responders who have been extraordinary. Having met with them, they are the kind of folks that are the heroes in moments of crisis who do extraordinary work that is about lifting up other people. As it relates in particular to the leaders who are here and doing that work, including the first responders, most of them, as it relates to the local folks, are folks who have personally and their families have personally experienced loss and devastation, and yet they leave their home, leave their family to go to centers like where I was earlier to do the work of helping perfect strangers. And it really does highlight the nobility of the kind of work that these public servants have dedicated themselves to. Can be in moments of crisis like this so selfless in the way that they do that work. The president and I have been paying close attention from the beginning to what we need to do to make sure the federal resources hit the ground as quickly as possible. And that includes what was necessary to make sure that we provided direct federal assistance. And that work has been happening. I want to thank the governor for his leadership and his close coordination with the federal government, with our administration. And I want to thank the local leaders for together creating a task force like response, knowing that we are at our best when we work together and coordinate resources, coordinate our communications to the maximum effect for the community that has been impacted. And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like. And you can apply now for anyone who's watching this who has been affected. There are FEMA personnel who are going door to door to interact personally with folks, especially those who do not have electricity, but also that aid, if you have electricity, can be applied, and I encourage people to do that. FEMA will just basically verify your address, and then the process should take hold. FEMA is also providing tens of thousands more dollars for folks to help them be able to deal with home repair, to be able to cover a deductible when and if they have insurance, and also hotel costs. Today, I'm also announcing that the president has approved the governor's request for 100% federal reimbursement of local costs. And Mayor, as you have pointed out, the burden to local governments, including the state government, is pretty immense. And so by announcing today and making the dedicated resources to cover 100% of local costs, will have a huge impact on our ability to get relief to people as quickly as possible. And that will include, for example, what the federal government will do to reimburse local and state governments around issues like debris removal, which you can see just up and down this street, much less in other areas of the state and in the region. This is a big issue. I was speaking with one of the residents of the community who needs that big tree removed so she can actually get to work and make sure that her child is able to get to school when the schools reopen. So this is a very big part of the recovery process. That money of the federal reimbursement will also help with emergency services that are now being provided by the state so that they can be reimbursed and then have the resources to keep providing those emergency services. Also, we will be covering the local government costs for food, water, and shelter. Again, resources that are desperately needed by the members of this community. And so my final point to the residents of this community and the region is that we are here for the long haul. There is the work that we have done together that was the immediate response, well, preparation for, and then the immediate response after. But there's a lot of work that's going to need to happen over the coming days, weeks, and months. And the coordination that we have dedicated ourselves to will be long lasting to get families, to get residents, to get neighborhoods back up and running. And my last point is this. I think that in these moments of hardship, one of the beauties about who we are as a country is people really rally together and show the best of who they are in moments of crisis. And we've seen that throughout the region where communities are coming together, where people are helping perfect strangers, where they are providing food, water, shelter for their neighbors, and that neighbor may be somebody they've never met before, but are doing the work of helping each other out. And I think it really highlights the fact that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us, and that the strength of who we are is we come to each other's aid in a time of need. So I thank everyone for doing that kind of work every day. And with that, there is more work to be done. Thank you all. Thank you.
Madam Vice President, or on people who are missing?
I did receive updates in terms of what's happening in the state, and so far the number looks to be 33. The mayor was just sharing with me 7 alone in Augusta, Richmond County. So the numbers are coming in, and part of the challenge of being accurate at this moment is that there are still so many areas that are remote, also rural areas, areas that are not easily accessible. So the assessment of the damage is being done across the board. And of course, the highest priority is to locate and determine individuals, people who are in need, and making sure we're getting to them as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. You've been listening to Vice President Kamala Harris speaking in Augusta, Georgia, about federal efforts to assist in the recovery after Hurricane Helene. And there's kind of a civics lesson there. In natural disasters of this magnitude, it's the federal government that backstops state and local efforts. State and local efforts are the first basic response, but what the federal government can do is marshal large resources and provide the financial backing so local jurisdictions and state jurisdictions can meet the needs of their citizens more rapidly.
Okay, so I did post into the comments section. I did post that she did sound unmotivated, but I could easily say that it was done from the standpoint. This is my comment here. I wrote it earlier. I ended up removing it. In fact, I could probably just remove it right now. But I essentially said that because of, because it did sound like that at first, but then you gotta think about it. It's been probably a long day having to have this type of discussions, going back and forth to everything. So I will give her the benefit of the doubt. I'll be nice today. All right. But in any case, this still happened under their watch, under their administration. So we're going to be talking very quickly. I think there's one more thing that I want to look at. And this is Forbes breaking news here.
We're together creating a task force-like response, knowing that we are at our best when we work together and coordinate resources, coordinate our communications to the maximum effect for the community that has been impacted. And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like. And you can apply now for anyone who's watching this who has been affected. There are FEMA personnel who are going door to door to interact personally with folks, especially those who do not have electricity. But also that aid, if you have electricity, can be applied for online. And I encourage.
So this is that everybody's talking about, which is the $750, which is arguably not nearly enough. It may seem to be immediate in the moment to try to take care of groceries and things like that, but $750 by and large is not going to really make much of a stretch towards anything. And this is all due from the standpoint of FEMA's lack of funds. So this is what they're able to muster for the time being. So I'm going to move into one more thing that I want to discuss, and that is the economic destabilization. All right. And it goes as the following here. So let me see. I had another one that I wanted to use. Okay. So is there any way that these issues pertaining to the situation, is there any way the issues pertain to the situation with the ports or with FEMA an indication of economic struggles or destabilization? ChatGPT says the following. The issues surrounding both the U.S. port strikes and FEMA funding shortfall during the 2024 hurricane season are broader symptoms of broader economic struggles and potential destabilization risk. Port strikes and chain supply disruption. The ongoing strike by the International Longshoremen Association, ILA, at major Eastern Gulf Coast ports could have severe economic repercussions. These ports handle a significant percentage of U.S. trade, and disruptions could exacerbate existing supply chain vulnerabilities. A prolonged strike could lead to shortage of critical goods, price increases, and delays in industrial supplies, electronics, automobiles, and even perishable foods items like bananas. The supply chain instability could further harm industries already weakened by COVID-19 or the panini, inflation, and other global disruptions straining an economy that has only recently seen signs of recovery. Number two, FEMA's funding crisis. The funding shortfall facing FEMA amid the hurricane season reflects broader budgetary constraints and the government's stretched financial resources. The agency's inability to adequately respond to future hurricanes or natural disasters without additional funding highlights weaknesses in the country's disaster preparedness infrastructure. Furthermore, debates on how FEMA funds are allocated, particularly the criticism of spending on migrant services, indicate political divisions over resource distribution, which signal broader economic governance issues. Together, these issues point to economic fragility, where disruptions in key sectors like shipping, combined with underfunded emergency responses, can lead to greater destabilization, affecting industries, consumer prices, and overall economic confidence. If not resolved quickly, both situations could contribute to long-term economic difficulties, influencing everything from inflation to GDP growth. So this is what we're facing right now, you all. We are facing some serious economic challenges that are, I won't say we're facing them, but they're also revealing themselves more and more through the weaknesses in our ports with the unions and everything, the hurricane from Hurricane Helene, and the infrastructure that occurred, the infrastructure destruction that occurred during the surge. So you have the buildings that have been taken underwater. You have roads and bridges that have been taken underwater, been just carried away, and now you have FEMA that has been low supply of funds. So now they're going to have to reconvene in Congress to see how much resources can be allocated in this moment in time. And in the meantime, they're going to be the people who have been affected by Hurricane Helene, particularly in the areas that have been most devastated, like in Augusta, Georgia, are going to be given $750 per household, right? Not per person, per household. So what we're seeing right now, in the midst of everything that is occurring, and then you have the $64 million that have $640 million that have been given towards the migrants. Now they say that it hasn't been allocated anywhere. The money for the natural disaster have been allocated anywhere, but then where has the money gone? Has the money just disappeared in the thin air? Has it just evaporated? It has to have gone somewhere. Where is the money? Nobody's talking about that. What we're seeing right now is the economic destabilization and the economic fragility that is occurring in this country in multiple ways. I want to get into more of Agenda 2030, but I want this to be more of the standpoint of where we are right now in the country and where we are right now specifically when it comes to making sure that we are being prepared. According to Florida, especially Ron DeSantis, hold on, let me see if I can find it. I don't want to just simply talk about it. I want you to hear from him and about the whole situation with the storm and how Florida has been assisting with other states since the federal government has not been helpful in trying to do as much because of the shortness of the funds. See if I can find that really quickly. By the way, as I'm taking my time to find that, make sure that you hit the like button again, and make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you're liking the content so far, and click the notification bell so that way you are alerted every time there is new videos in store, new content that's in store for you all. All right, now just give me 1 minute. Here we go. This is the one right here. And I'm going to share my video one more time. What we got here? There we go. It's loading right now as we speak. And now, without further ado, let's continue on with this topic from Ron DeSantis, which is really talking about the heroes of the community itself. So here we go.
We hear from during the storm, Ron DeSantis, Republican governor of Florida, where, of course, the effects of Hurricane Helene were hit first. His state took it first. And you're feeling it too, Governor. I want to start, though, and I have to, because it just seems surreal that the President of the United States would say that anyone is happy and that they have enough at this point, and that he was confused about which storm we mean. Your reaction?
Well, Harris, we obviously got the initial impacts of the storm. It was a Category 4 storm, but we prepared for it. We had tens of thousands of utility workers ready to go. We were able to facilitate 2.4 million power restorations in record time after a major hurricane. But we also, between state and local, conducted thousands of rescue missions as soon as the storm happened. So then we were in a situation where we got through Friday of last week, come in Saturday morning, and we didn't have a demand for rescue, but you saw in Western North Carolina, you saw people that were very desperate. So I authorized air assets, National Guard, State Guard, Highway Patrol to go into Western North Carolina. So it created this odd circumstance that you have people there in Western North Carolina. And look, we've got a lot of Floridians that go there over the summer, so it wasn't like a random spot on the map for us. That's an important part of our state people where they go. But you have a situation where the first people that they come in contact with is some state guard unit from Florida and not any of the federal assets. So the reality is I don't think the federal assets were marshaled very quickly at all. But the lesson that I think people should take from this is one we learned in Florida long ago. We don't rely on FEMA to do any of that type of activity. We rely on FEMA to basically be a bank account. There's federal programs in place. We get our people qualified for individual assistance, reimbursement for some of the debris, but we take the matters into our own hands for the preparation and the rescue and response. And I just think it's sad that this has come to it. But I've got a lot of people up there now working. They're bringing food in. They're taking people back to safety. It is a really, really dire situation up there in the mountains. And the people that have been up there before, and I've been up there a number of times since I've been governor, and it's beautiful, but it is rugged. And if roads start blowing out or failing, you can't reach some of these communities unless you're putting in air assets, which we have been willing to do.
And look, part of that beauty is because it is so inaccessible. It has preserved the nature there. And I've seen it. I lived in that state more than once in my lifetime, North Carolina in particular. It is. But where the president was, and I want, you've shown so much leadership, and your experience with the storm type of situation really shines. And you see Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, and you see others. You're having to do a lot of this on your own. So when you hear the president of the United States, first of all, know which storm we're talking about as journalists when we ask about it, and then also that people are happy with what he's done. What is your reaction, Governor?
Well, I can tell you in Western North Carolina, the reports I'm getting, that's just not true. I mean, our guys are out there. People are desperate. They're very thankful that you have Florida assets that are there. I mean, we've got our Department of Transportation is up there. We brought 7,500 feet of temporary bridges. We're going to help repair bridges up there. Federal government's not doing any of that. But the reality is you just cannot, the federal bureaucracy, it's just not going to do the trick in these situations. And so we were able to do it. Interesting, Harris, in Florida, we conducted thousands of rescue missions as soon as the storm hit, a lot of it local, some joint, state and local, and other state. And all of those missions were successful. We did have fatalities, but the people that were in dire straits, that needed help, they got rescued and brought to safety.
And now
That
you're
is
able
the
to
way
help
it's
other
done.
states. I mean, and they really need it. I was on the radio with a station this morning for quite some time in North Carolina, and Governor, that it's grim, and they're finding their own way not only to sustain but to deal with the loss of life and to discover that on their own. I mean, it is heartbreaking. Look, this had a second layer until it seemed like late yesterday, and there was a collision point, again, with you at the center of it, unleashing the National Guard on a situation that really is the federal government's responsibility. A reprieve for now. Dozens of ports during the port strike, which ended overnight, along the east and Gulf coasts have reopened after the dock workers union reached a tentative deal to suspend its strike. That temporary agreement offers a 62% wage hike over 6 years. The two sides will still have until January 15th to reach a full deal. So I would imagine, Governor, if that doesn't happen, this gives you a little bit of time, and we need that cooling off period. Biden could have done that before, but we're not done with this yet.
Well, Harris, I did an executive order to declare a state of emergency with respect to the ports, because we can't have a situation where they are trying to cripple the economy and by extension, cripple the ability of storm victims to be able to have the supplies that they need to be able to rebuild their homes and get back on their feet. So I authorized National Guard to be at our ports. They would have received cargo. They would have done whatever is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that subsequent to that they've decided that this was not a good idea to continue on this work stoppage. But we're going to be ready in January because, yes, we're going to get a lot of stuff done between now and then with respect to the storm. There's going to be a lot more that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you want to put those folks and make them pay the price because of a lack of leadership in Washington. So we were ready to do what needed to be done now. Fortunately, we're not going to have to do that in the short term, but we'll be ready in January as well. We are going to get the things to the people that need them. That should be true in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and all across the United States.
Tennessee, Virginia, South Carolina, so much. Governor, thank you for joining me in Focus today. And as you point out, Biden will still be in office until January 20th. So when this cooks back up potentially and they have to quiet this port strike deal permanently, hopefully, or what could look like permanence, the current administration will still have it for a few days. Governor Ron DeSantis, bless you and the states that you're helping, and of course, Florida. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno.
All right, so that's it for now. That's everything that I'm going to be sharing for today. So basically, from Ron DeSantis, he has come to the understanding that the states are pretty much on their own. And from the looks of FEMA and the idea that nobody knows where the money is, it may be safe to say that is the case. This may be the America that we're going to have to take seriously to prepare for. You're going to have to look out for yourself. And I haven't gotten into, again, Agenda 2030. I'm going to get into that next week. Please forgive me for the delay in time. I was hoping that I would get to this a lot sooner on Friday. However, because of the technical situation that I had on yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was on that Wednesday. Because I had the technical issue on that particular day, I could not be able to do what I wanted to do with everything I wanted to have prepared up until this point. So thank you all for joining me. We will have this conversation that week. Tomorrow is going to be a chit chat Saturday. I have something I want to share with you all. It's going to be pertaining a lot to anxiety, overthinking, and how it's keeping you from really achieving things. And I've been having motivation throughout this entire week about it, but it was something about today that really gave me, and actually it was been the past 2 days, so yesterday and today, that had really made me want to talk about this with you all. And this is what we're going to be talking about on our Chit Chat Saturday. All right. And then next week, we're going to get back to our usual content where we are going to be discussing things regarding the new America. Make sure that you're preparing yourself, making sure that you are leading yourself, because we're in that time where you're going to have to be leading with how things are changing with the economy. And We're going to be talking about, again, Agenda 2030. We're going to do that officially next week, y'all. I promise we're going to do it next week, okay? But we have to talk about it because it's going to be playing into a role of what we're moving into for our future. And this is something that has been going on with, this is something that has been going on for quite some time. I would say at least up to 2015 where it has been recorded, but it could have been a whole lot sooner than that. And it's going to be moving us into what the future is going to be looking like for all of us. Now, how that may affect things within the United States specifically, I don't know. I think that we're starting to see the changes of that bit by bit. But we're going to talk about it, you all, because nobody's talking about Agenda 2030, and everybody's more focused about other things that are, I won't say a distraction, because it's not necessarily like, it's stuff that's trying to keep us away. But because there are other things that are going on, I don't think we're seeing how bit by bit we are moving into things set for 2030 at a rapid pace, probably too quickly for things to catch on. So with that said, thank you all for tuning in. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Eagle Eye Prepping, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to listen in. It means a lot to me. Eagle Eye Prepping is somebody that I met through CEO Drive her YouTube channel. So I'm really glad that she was able to be here to listen to everything that I had to share. And there will be more throughout the tomorrow and throughout the upcoming week. So you did want to be looking out for that. All right. Again, one more time, if you like this video, make sure that you hit the like button below. Leave your comments down below. Let me hear your thoughts, hear your opinion about everything that has been shared through what we've been seeing in the news and everything. I think I finally I think the network is working with me at least a little bit, and I managed to clear out things off of my computer so that way things can run a little bit more smoothly and effectively. Also, if you are somebody who is brand new here and you like the content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that way you are alerted, so that way there is new videos that you will see from here. Until next time, I'll catch you guys tomorrow for our Chit Chat Saturday. Later, everybody. Bye-bye.